0347 hours. The Arabian Sea. Somewhere beneath a moonless sky, 400 nautical miles southwest of the Iranian coastline. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower is cutting through black water at a steady 20 knots. Her flight deck is quiet. Her crew of 5,300 sailors is running the overnight watch rotation. The carrier's lights are dim to combat mode. From the surface, she is nearly invisible. Inside the mountain ranges of western Iran, that invisibility is about to be tested. At precisely 0347, a chain of underground bunker doors slides open across 3 separate launch sites in Khuzestan province. These are not the short-range rockets Iran fires to make political statements. These are Emad, 1 ballistic missiles, medium range, precision guided, specifically engineered with one purpose in mind: to pierce the armored flight deck of a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier and detonate inside the hull. The IRGC Aerospace Division has been planning this strike for months. They've calculated the Eisenhower's patrol corridor. They've timed the launch window for the lowest satellite coverage gap of the night. They've coordinated a simultaneous drone swarm to shred the radar picture at sea level while the ballistic warheads drop from above. This isn't a warning shot. This is a kill attempt. 5 Emad missiles leave their launchers in under 12 seconds. They breach the atmosphere inside 30. At peak altitude, they are traveling at over 4,000 miles per hour, arcing silently through the vacuum of space on a trajectory pointed directly at a $13 billion warship. Alongside them, 60 Shahed, 136 loitering munitions launch from fast attack boats positioned 40 miles off the Iranian coast. The drones fly low, slow, radar cluttering, designed to force every targeting system in the American strike group to split its attention between the killers falling from space and the swarm buzzing across the water. The IRGC commanders watching from their underground operations center believe they have finally built the perfect trap. They are already wrong. They just don't know it yet. The defense of the Eisenhower did not begin when those bunker doors opened. It began 22,000 miles above the Earth, 3 hours earlier, when a space-based infrared systems satellite quietly repositioned its sensor array over the Persian Gulf. SBIRS doesn't wait for launches. It watches for the thermal signatures that precede them, the underground bunker ventilation patterns, the fuel truck movements, the power draw spikes that indicate pre-launch system activation. By the time the first Emad motor ignited, the SBIRS satellite had already flagged the site as launch imminent and passed the data to U.S. Central Command. The kill chain was alive before the first missile left the ground. Think of it like this. Iran thought they were ambushing a sleeping giant. The giant had been watching them load the gun. The launch data hits the Eisenhower's Combat Information Center in under 4 seconds, not as a slow report climbing through a chain of command. As a direct machine-to-machine data burst through Link 16, the encrypted tactical network connecting every ship, aircraft, and command node in the strike group simultaneously. In the CIC, 5 red tracks appear on the main tactical display, then 60 more. Then the system sorts them automatically by time to impact, threat classification, and intercept probability. The Aegis computers aboard the Eisenhower and her 2 escort destroyers, the USS Mitcher and the USS Gravely, are already building firing solutions before a single human being has issued an order. This is what the system of systems actually means. It is not a phrase. It is a machine that thinks faster than any human in a crisis and executes faster than any enemy can adapt. The drone swarm is the first problem to solve. 60 Shahed, 136 units moving at 115 miles per hour, spread across a 40-mile front, flying at altitudes between 50 and 300 feet. Their radar signatures are tiny. On a cluttered sea surface radar picture, they look like noise. That is exactly the point. But the Eisenhower isn't relying on surface radar to find them. 2 E-2D Hawkeye aircraft, already airborne on their standard patrol orbit 30 miles ahead of the carrier, are looking down from altitude. From 25,000 feet, the Hawkeye's AN/APY-9 radar doesn't have to fight through sea clutter. It sees the drone swarm the way you'd see ants on a white floor from the second story of a building. Every contact is clean. Every track is precise. The Hawkeye feeds the picture directly into the Aegis network. The swarm that was supposed to blind the strike group has just been mapped to centimeter-level precision. On the Mitcher, the tactical action officer doesn't hesitate. The Standard Missile 6 is designed exactly for this scenario. It isn't just an interceptor. It is a networked weapon with its own active radar seeker that can receive targeting data mid-flight from the Hawkeye overhead and update its solution in real time. The Mitcher's VLS cells begin cycling. 8 SM-6 launches in 41 seconds. Each missile climbs, rolls over, and begins descending into the drone swarm from above. The Shaheds never see them coming. There is no radar warning receiver on a Shahed 136 that can detect an active seeker diving from altitude. The impacts register on the Hawkeye display as blinking contacts that simply stop moving. 41 of 60 drones are deleted from the picture in under 3 minutes. The remaining 19 continue closing, but they are no longer a coordinated swarm. They are scattered, leaderless, and heading into the phalanx engagement envelope. Now comes the harder problem. The 5 Emad ballistic missiles are beginning their terminal descent phase. They are no longer traveling in a predictable arc. At re-entry, they have activated their maneuvering warhead packages. These are not your grandfather's ballistic missiles that follow a fixed parabolic path and can be intercepted with geometry and timing alone. The Emad's re-entry vehicle can make lateral corrections of up to 3 kilometers during terminal descent, changing its impact point and forcing the interceptor to chase rather than predict. The IRGC engineers who designed this capability believed it would defeat any sea-based interceptor in existence. They were building their plan around a 2019 version of the Aegis system. They had not accounted for the baseline 9 upgrade. They had no idea the Gravely was running it. The SM-3 Block IIA is what the Gravely fires at the Emad missiles, and calling it a missile feels like an understatement. It stands at 21 feet tall. It exits the launch cell at over 1,000 miles per hour and accelerates continuously until it reaches the edge of the atmosphere. Its kinetic kill vehicle separates from the final boost stage. There is no explosive warhead. None is needed. The kill vehicle is a 22-kilogram block of precision-engineered tungsten and sensor arrays, and when it reaches its intercept point, it is traveling at a closing speed relative to the target of over 15,000 miles per hour. Picture 2 freight trains, each the size of a refrigerator, aimed directly at each other from opposite ends of the same track, both accelerating. The collision doesn't create a crater. It creates a vapor cloud. 2 Emad warheads cease to exist in this fashion within 30 seconds of the Gravely's first SM-3 salvo. 3 remain. And here is where the IRGC's planning nearly works. The third Emad has been programmed with a delayed maneuver package. It holds its ballistic arc through the mid-course phase, presenting a predictable intercept solution. And then, at an altitude of 40 kilometers, it executes a lateral jink of 2.4 kilometers to the west. The SM-3 kill vehicle, already committed to its intercept geometry, misses by 300 meters. The Emad is now inside the SM-3 engagement envelope. It is 18 seconds from impact with the Eisenhower's flight deck. In the IRGC Operations Center, an alarm sounds. The tracker confirms the SM-3 miss. For exactly 4 seconds, the Iranian commanders believe they have just killed an American aircraft carrier. They are 4 seconds from the worst intelligence failure of their operational history. What Iran did not know, what they could not have known, is that the Gravely had been tracking the delayed maneuver signature on that specific Emad since mid-course. The baseline 9 fire control system had flagged the timing irregularity in the warhead's thermal emission pattern at re-entry, a signature that indicates a delayed maneuver package, and had held an SM-6 inches reserve rather than committing it to that track with the SM-3. The SM-3 miss was not a failure. It was expected. The SM-6 that follows it into the terminal engagement is already built around the post-maneuver geometry. The SM-6 doesn't need to predict where the Emad is going. It has its own seeker. It chases. The intercept happens at 4 kilometers altitude, directly above the strike group. The detonation sends fragments in a 300-meter radius. The Eisenhower's crew feels the shock wave through the hull, not damage. A reminder that the physics of this fight are running at the very edge of what any system can manage. The fourth Emad is engaged by the Mitcher with a second SM-3 launch. Clean intercept. Mid-course. It never reaches terminal phase. The fifth and final missile is acquired by the Eisenhower's own SPY-1 radar at close range and engaged by an SM-3 Block IIA in the terminal defense envelope. The SM-2 is an older missile, but at this range and altitude, its performance envelope is exactly right for the geometry. The warhead detonates at 800 meters altitude, close enough that the carrier's close-in weapons system, the 20mm phalanx Gatling, automatically engages the debris cloud with a burst that fires 4,500 rounds per minute. The phalanx shreds the fragments before they can fall onto the flight deck. The carrier crew hears it as a sound, like a metallic zipper being pulled across the sky. And then it is quiet. 19 Shaheds are still airborne and closing. The phalanx systems on the Eisenhower and both destroyers are now in automatic engagement mode. The close-in weapon system was built to win this specific problem. At short range against slow, low-flying targets, it is essentially a wall of tungsten moving at a mile per second. The remaining Shaheds find that wall. None of them reach the carrier. In Tehran, the IRGC Aerospace Command is staring at a radar picture showing no surviving weapons. Their operations timeline called for a gap of at least 3 minutes between the ballistic strike and the drone arrival, during which the Eisenhower's Combat Information Center would be in post-impact chaos and her air defense systems would be compromised. That gap never opened because the impact never happened. They are now watching $60 million of precision weaponry dissolve into the Arabian Sea with zero effect. The IRGC Public Affairs Division is already preparing a press release that will describe a successful strike against American assets. They will release a night vision video of missile launches and a stock footage clip of an explosion. They will announce casualties. They will call it a historic victory for the resistance. On the Eisenhower, a junior officer is refilling his coffee cup. There is not a single scratch on the hull. Flight operations resume within 12 minutes of the last intercept. An FA-18F launches from Catapult 2 as though the previous 40 minutes never occurred. The carrier does not change course. She does not slow. She does not signal distress. She continues her patrol corridor because nothing happened that required her to do otherwise. That is the most powerful signal the IRGC will receive from this entire engagement. Not a threat, not a press release, just a carrier that kept moving. Now let's talk about what this actually cost and what it actually means. Iran spent approximately $70 to $90 million on this strike. 5 Emad missiles at roughly $8 million each. 60 Shaheds at around $50,000 each. Logistics, targeting intelligence, coordination across 3 launch sites. $90 million. Years of development, months of operational planning, and their best available anti-ship weaponry. The result? 0 damage to American assets, 0 casualties, and a complete intelligence windfall for the U.S. Navy. Because here is what the IRGC did not account for. Every electronic emission, from every launch platform, every radar frequency, every maneuver algorithm inside the Emad's re-entry vehicle, every timing signature from the Shahed coordination network, was recorded in its entirety by the Eisenhower's ESM suite, the Hawkeye's SIGINT payload, and at least 2 additional collection platforms that were airborne in the theater that night for exactly this reason. Iran just handed the United States a complete technical blueprint of their most advanced anti-ship strike package. The next time they attempt this, the kill chain will engage 14 seconds faster because the system has already seen the playbook. The return on investment calculation is not complicated. The United States spent somewhere between $30 and $50 million in interceptors to defend a $13 billion carrier, $6 billion in aircraft on her deck, and 5,300 lives. That is not a defense budget line item. That is the most profitable transaction in the history of warfare. A 38,000% return before the sun rises. No investment fund on Earth has ever produced numbers like that. But the deeper lesson is not about dollar values. It is about the architecture underneath them. The reason the Eisenhower survived this attack was not because any single missile was better than any single threat. It was because every platform in that strike group was sharing data with every other platform in real time, and the system as a whole was capable of making decisions faster than the enemy could execute their plan. The Space Force satellite saw the launch before it happened. The Hawkeye mapped the drone swarm from altitude before it could clutter the picture. The Aegis network sequenced the intercepts across multiple ships without duplication or gap. The Baseline 9 fire control held a weapon in reserve for a warhead it predicted would maneuver. Each layer knew what the others were doing. None of them operated alone. That is, the system of systems. Not a marketing phrase. A weapon that thinks. Iran used their best strike package against the most defended target on Earth and forced one shockwave through a hull that was already built to absorb it. As the sun came up over the Arabian Sea, the Eisenhower was launching aircraft. The IRGC was writing fiction. And somewhere in a data center in Virginia, analysts were already pulling apart the acoustic and electromagnetic record of the entire engagement, learning things about Iranian missile technology that Tehran believed were secret. The Lincoln keeps its watch. The catapults keep firing. And the rules of the ocean remain exactly what they were before the bunker doors opened. If you want to understand what is actually happening in these waters while most of the world is asleep, subscribe. We break down the technology and the doctrine that define the real front lines, not the version you see in the headlines. Drop your question in the comments. If Iran fires a second wave with twice the missiles, does the math still hold? The answer will surprise you. The scenario described in this video is a technical and tactical analysis based on real military assets, published defense specifications, and documented regional tensions. The specific engagement sequence is a hypothetical dramatization used to illustrate U.S. naval defense capabilities and doctrine.